The rain was a persistent whisper against the glass, that kind of frantic, rhythmic scratching that makes you feel like someone is trying to claw their way in. I had only moved into this secluded Massachusetts farmhouse a week ago. It was a classic piece of Americana. Soaring ceilings, floorboards that groaned under the slightest weight, and that pervasive scent of old dust and secrets. I was hunched over my laptop in the living room, nursing a cold cup of coffee while grinding through a presentation due the next morning. It was 1:15 a.m. The house was silent and I was alone, or so I desperately wanted to believe. Then the power cut out. It wasn't a gradual flicker. It was a sudden, violent consumption of light, as if the darkness had finally lost its patience and swallowed the room whole. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. You see, true darkness has a sound. It's not silence, but a heavy, pressurized ringing in your ears. "Lana?" I whispered. It was a reflex, a stupid one. Lana was miles away in the city, out with friends. I just needed to hear a human voice, even if it was my own, to prove I hadn't disappeared. Using my phone's flashlight, I realized I'd have to trek down to the basement to check the breaker box. As I approached the hallway, I noticed the first anomaly. The basement door was wide open. I distinctly remembered latching it before sitting down to work. Every step down the wooden stairs felt like a gunshot in the oppressive quiet. The weak beam of my phone danced across rusted tools and furniture draped in yellowing sheets. The air in the basement was frigid, unnaturally so. I could see my own breath blooming in the light like a ghostly cloud. When I reached the panel, I found every single breaker flipped to the off position. One by one, I clicked them back up. The overhead bulbs hummed to life, but in that split second of illumination, I saw a movement in the far corner. I spun around, nothing, just an old upright piano and a mound of boxes. But one of the white sheets lay crumpled on the floor, as if it had been yanked off whatever it was covering. "Who's there?" My voice was a brittle shadow of itself. No answer. I didn't wait for one. I bolted back upstairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached the kitchen and poured a glass of water, my hands shaking so violently the glass rattled against my teeth. It's just an old house, I told myself. Wind, shifting foundations, a faulty circuit. Everything has a rational explanation. That's when the whisper brushed against the back of my neck. "Help me." It was so close I felt the cold displacement of air against my skin. I gasped, the glass slipping from my hand and shattering across the tile. I didn't stop to look at the shards. I ran straight for the bedroom. I slammed the bedroom door and turned the deadbolt, my lungs burning. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady my breathing. That's when my eyes drifted to the antique floor-length mirror across the room. The dim bedside lamp cast long, distorted shadows. In the glass, I saw my own pale, terrified face. But behind my reflection, inside the walk-in closet that I knew I had closed, two amber eyes were staring back at me. I was paralyzed. It was that peak of primal horror, where the body turns to stone while the mind screams for flight. From the darkness of the closet, long, spindly, grey-white fingers curled around the edge of the door. The creature didn't look human. Its limbs were elongated, the joints bending at impossible, sickening angles. It pulled itself out, slowly. It had no true face, just deep, hollow pits where eyes should be and a mouth that twitched with a life of its own. I scrambled for the door, fumbling with the lock. I could hear it behind me, a wet, crunching sound like bones being snapped and rearranged. I threw myself down the stairs and lunged for the front door, yanking the handle with everything I had. It wouldn't budge. It felt as though it had been welded into the frame. I hammered on the windows, but the glass felt like solid stone. I was a rat in a trap. "Please, just let me out," I screamed into the void. The lights killed again. Total blackout. I retreated into a corner of the kitchen, grabbing a steak knife from the counter. I couldn't see, but I could smell. The stench of rot and damp earth filled the room. The creature was inches away now. I could hear its rhythmic, heavy rasping. Then a hand touched me. The fingers were ice cold and slick with something viscous. "My turn," the thing said. It spoke with my voice. It was my exact pitch, my exact inflection. I closed my eyes and screamed until my throat tore. I woke up to the warm glow of the sun hitting my face. I was lying on the living room sofa. My laptop was still open, the screensaver dancing. The lights were on. "A dream?" I whispered, tears of relief pricking my eyes. Just a vivid, horrible dream. I stood up and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Everything was pristine. Everything was normal. But then I stopped dead. There, in the corner of the floor where I had dropped the glass, was a single, tiny shard of shimmer. I picked it up. As I looked at my thumb, I saw a smudge of that same black, oily residue from the night before. I looked into the hallway mirror. My reflection was smiling at me, but I wasn't smiling. My reflection raised a finger to its lips and whispered, "Shh." In that moment of pure, cold clarity, I realized the truth. I never made it out of that room. I'm still in the dark, somewhere deep inside that closet. And the thing walking through my house isn't me.